Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. It is 10 o'clock. I am Tim Harris. It is time for 10 with Tim. It is Friday. It's the end of a good week, and it's been a good week in the Word. I know. I dragged you out of Revelation and into the book of Numbers. But so far, and I'm being honest with you, through the course of 10 with Tim, we're reading the whole Bible. There really are books that I've just put off because I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to drag people through this verse by verse. Because I guess I worry about people. I know that people like to be inspired and they like to have a verse that they can put on Facebook and inspire their friends. And so far, Numbers isn't that for us. Now there are some great stories in Numbers, and it's going to get really good. But yeah, there's a lot of numbers in it too. And Numbers chapter 4, where we are today, I know that for a lot of you, it's just like, what am I supposed to care about here? It's just a lot of detail about the Levites and their duties. But I'm just speaking honestly for myself. I dig into these passages, and honestly, I don't always know. I got to talk 10 minutes, right? so I want to find a lesson. I want to find something to share. And I'm telling you, God is faithful. The Word is good. And gosh, in all this time, I never feel like I go to God's Word and come back empty-handed. And I love it. And a part of it's because I know I'm a nerd. I really am a nerd. I'm a Bible nerd, and I just love to dig into it. And I'm a pastor, and so Numbers chapter 4, maybe I relate to it differently just because I'm in ministry, and I see these guys as my, forefathers in ministry. I mean, these are the Levites. These are the priests and the Levites, the ones who were guardians of the sacred, worshiping life of the people. And I see myself in that role, but I also don't think that you're not in that role too. So let's talk about it. Numbers chapter 4, verses 1 to 49, that's our passage today. It really is a mind-numbing manual of specific duties for the Levites. Now, mostly this has to do with preparing the tabernacle for travel when it's time to move. Now, this is hardly ever going to happen, to be honest. Most of the time, you're not traveling, moving. Most of the time, they're camped. And so there's a long periods of time when the Levites aren't going to have a lot of work to do. They're just not. Now, there's a difference between priests and Levites, and understand that. Now, every priest is a Levite, but not every Levite is a priest. The priests in particular are the descendants of Aaron, the sons of Aaron. And Aaron was a Levite. He was from the tribe of Levi. And so in that sense, all of the priests are Levites, but not all the Levites are priests. You have to be a descendant of Aaron. So you'll notice here in chapter 4, there is that distinction between the sons of Aaron and the lay Levites, so to speak. They're not priests. The priests are the ones who mediate the presence of God before the people. Now, this sounds like a great honor, and indeed it is, to be able to have such proximity and access to holy things, to be able to see what other people honestly never get to see, or to hold what other people never get to hold. But at the same time, this is considered to be the job with the most risk. There's an incredible reverence and fear associated with God's presence in the Old Testament. And part of that is because they don't know Jesus. And part of that is because they knew God, And I'm afraid that for us, it seems like sometimes we don't know Jesus, or God. I know they're the same, but you know what I mean? We don't have any kind of holy reverence. We don't tremble in His presence. We are very casual about holy moments and holy things. And as a matter of fact, most of us don't really have any holy things in our lives because Jesus makes everything holy, right? And so if everything's holy, nothing's holy. I mean, that's kind of how we live our lives. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that. You understand? And so truly, you'll notice here, for example, in the beginning, verses 5 to 15, just spell out the way that Aaron and his sons have to work first. So if the cloud moves and that means it's time to move the tabernacle, all of a sudden it's on, it's on. We got to go. The cloud moves, and so we have to move. So it's not constant work, but it's constant readiness for the Levites. Always have to be ready to go right to work. But they can't do anything until the priests come in, and the priests are the only ones allowed to look at the most sacred objects. And by that, I'm talking about the ark, the table of presence, the lampstand, and the altar. These are the things that nobody else is even allowed to see, much less touch. And so in this case, when the cloud moves and it's time to move the camp, now the priests have to come in first, and they have to cover everything. And there are very specific instructions for how they will be covered. They're going to have to cover the ark, cover the table of presence, cover the lampstand, the altar, and with that, insert the poles for moving. Nobody else can touch these things, and once the poles are in place, then they can be moved by the poles. But nobody else can see or touch these things. And again, I love this sense of just sacred boundaries, and the priests and the Levites too, to a degree. It's just one of the biggest parts of their job, to guard the boundaries of holiness. Not so much to restrict access, like only certain people are special, but out of reverence and obedience for God, of course, but also out of the fear of God. I mean, these things are treated like they're nuclear, like removing an atomic bomb. That's the kind of fear. That's the kind of holding your breath, kind of gentleness you would have when you go near these items. And so once Aaron and his sons have covered and prepared all the sacred objects, now the Kohathites can come in. Remember, there are three clans within the Levitical tribe: the Kohathites, the Gershonites, and the Merarites. And so the Kohathites are first. They come in and they're going to move these most sacred items. They get to move them. They don't get to see them. They don't get to touch them, but they come in to move them when that time comes. And those jobs are laid out very specifically. Notice how it says you got to list the men. We want their names, and every man is assigned exactly what his job is going to be and what he's going to carry. Everybody knows what they're going to carry. I just think it's really rather magnificent. The Gershonites come next. They're in charge of transporting curtains and ropes and tent coverings and that sort of thing. I don't know about y'all. I know that this is all sacred duty, and so you're not supposed to say, yeah, but one job's better than the other. And I don't know about y'all, but I'd rather carry like fire than fabric. I feel more important, because I'd end up, somebody else would get to carry, the Ark of the Covenant, and I'm back here carrying a pile of rope. The Gershonites are carrying fabric. It's all fabric stuff, but still, these jobs are crucial. These tent coverings, these fabric, items that they move, that they define the boundaries of worship and the holy place and all of that. It's so important, but so not every job is glamorous or even seen, but at the same time, every job is important. Every job is important. The Merarites, verses 29 and 33, these are the movers and the muscles, y'all. The Merarites are going to move the bases. They're going to move the frames, all the architectural support. And the Merarites are just like the goons that come in the end and carry the heavy stuff. And in verse 49, each man was assigned his task and told what to carry. Now, I'm just being honest. My first response was, okay, there are 8,580 of these men. That is a lot of people. That is a lot of men. And it's one tabernacle. Like, maybe it was bigger than I'm picturing, but how many ropes do you have? How many tents? I mean, how many tent flaps are we talking? How many tent pads? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Does it take 8,580 men to do this job? This seems like a whole lot of people, and I think that's part of the point. Yes, there are a lot of extra hands here, and for us, we want efficiency. Like you give me like. Probably I just could take the Merarites, like the big goons, like the big muscles, and I bet you we could get about 50 of those guys, and about 50 of those guys. I mean, we could have this thing packed up, and we could be eating Mexican restaurant by lunch. I mean, just give me 50 guys, but no, we got 8,580. Some of them are young, some of them are late. You know what I mean? What about all that? Well, we're still talking about the worshiping life of the church. Did you forget that? This is the worshiping life of the church, and this is what worship. this is what the work of worship looks like. You know, I know. We think about those moments in the temple when God's presence is evident and the cloud is descended and we're all just enraptured in glory, and we think of that as the work of worship. But no, this is it too. Somebody's got to do all this stuff. You know, somebody's got to do all this stuff. In our church, it's Warren's the mirror, right, y'all? Warren Weeks is the guy setting up chairs, taking down chairs, setting the thermostats. I mean, we couldn't do anything without him. But at the same time, when we're gathered in worship, his duties are often forgotten. We take them for granted because they're behind the scenes and always done, you know? And understand in this, economy of worship here, 8,580 men, probably 8,500 of them, their work never gets recognized. But at the same time, God knows their name. They're assigned their specific duty. And when it comes to worship, God knows exactly what each man can lift, you know? And I think that's still the case. In our church, we don't have 8,580, but if we got 900, which I think we probably had last Sunday, like 900, how many of them are lifting anything in worship? You know what I'm saying? How many of them are lifting anything? It's not efficiency, right? It's participation. And so each man, 8,000 men, everybody's got a job. And yeah, we could do it with 50, but it's the participation. It's God, involving more and more people to draw near to his holiness. And I think that's magnificent. And I guess for me, at the end of this day, I just think about church and I think about how much work we have to do, how many extra people we have, but how so many of the extra people aren't really doing any lifting. And then we end up with people who are burned out and tired. You've been doing the middle school girls small group, for 5 years. And if you get sick, like you can't get sick because we can't find anybody to come in and take your place, Right now, Lisa McElroy, is very, very sick. She's held bed babies in our church, since my son was since before my son was a bed baby, and my son's 30 now, so decades she's been holding babies in our church, and now she's not here to hold. You know what I mean? It's not like we got people standing in line to do some of these jobs, and holding babies is kind of a behind the scenes thing, unless it's your baby, I'm just saying that it's very, very difficult to get people to participate, in the worshiping life of the church. And you think worshiping life, is that holding babies worship? Well, it's a part of it. It's a part of it. Just like the Merarite, who moved the base of one of the, poles, you wouldn't think a lot about it until that base in there and the pole falls in on, and the whole tent collapses. You know what I'm saying? It's about participation, not efficiency. And God has us, God knows everybody's name and has assigned everybody's duty. And when it comes to worship, there's some part of this weight that you're supposed to bear. Everybody's got something to lift up, when it comes to worship and the worshiping life of the church. And I encourage you to find your place, to figure out what your role is, to find out what God intends for you to pick up, and then pick that up. All right, pick that up. Extra hands share their weight and share the responsibility. And between all of us, there is a sacred job to do, and we're going to get it done. Anyway, I like Numbers chapter 4, y'all. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. Chapter 5 for Monday, all right? Chapter 5, just one chapter, verses 1 to 31. Numbers chapter 5. I haven't looked ahead, but I bet it's going to be good. I will see you then, you guys. Have a good weekend. This coming Sunday, I'm preaching about heaven, you all, at the 8 and 9:30 service. 11 o'clock service is our graduate commissioning, and I can't wait for that. If I don't see you then, I'll see you Monday morning, all right? I love you guys so much. Have a good listen. Stay dry. Stay out of these